History is filled with conquerors who shock the world not only with their victories, but also with the brutality of their methods. Among these rulers, there is one whose actions have been remembered for centuries, not simply because of the battles he won, but because of the terrifying way he treated his enemies after victory. This man was Tamerlane, also known as Timur, the 14th century warlord who built one of the largest empires in Asia. He did not just defeat his enemies, he crushed them, humiliated them, and turned their remains into chilling reminders of his power. One of his most infamous acts was ordering the skulls of his fallen rivals to be turned into drinking goblets, a move that shocked even the hardened warriors of his time. This story is not simply about a cruel emperor, but about the strange mixture of ambition, violence, and cultural traditions that shaped his legacy. To understand Timur, it is necessary to first look at his origins. Born in the year 1336 near Samarkand, in what is now Uzbekistan, Timur grew up among Turkic and Mongol tribes. He was not born into the wealthiest or most powerful family, but he was ambitious and determined to rise. As a young man, he suffered an injury that left him with a permanent limp, which earned him the name Timur the Lame, or Tamerlane in European writings. Yet his limp did not stop him. Instead, it became part of his legend. People began to see him as a man marked by fate, someone destined for greatness despite physical limitations. He claimed descent from Genghis Khan through marriage, and this connection gave him legitimacy as he sought to build his empire. By the time Timur began his campaigns, the Mongol Empire had already fractured. Different Khanates and kingdoms fought for control across Central Asia, Persia, and India. This chaos gave him the perfect chance to rise. Timur proved himself to be not just a skilled general, but also a master of psychological warfare. He understood that victory on the battlefield was important, but so too was the image of fear that he projected. In city after city, he used cruelty as a weapon, massacring entire populations if they resisted him. Stories of these atrocities spread quickly, and sometimes his reputation alone was enough to make a city surrender without a fight. One of Timur's most infamous campaigns was in Persia. In 1387, he captured the city of Isfahan after a rebellion. Instead of forgiving the citizens, he ordered a massacre. Chroniclers wrote that his soldiers killed tens of thousands of people and that their skulls were stacked into great pyramids outside the city walls. This act was not just about revenge, it was about creating a horrifying monument to his authority. When neighboring cities heard what had happened in Isfahan, many of them chose to submit rather than risk the same fate. The skull pyramids were like grim billboards, announcing that resistance would mean destruction. But Timur did not stop with mass executions. He wanted his enemies not only dead, but humiliated in ways that would be remembered forever. This is where the story of the skull goblets begins. After defeating certain rival rulers, Timur ordered their skulls to be carefully cleaned and reshaped into drinking vessels. These goblets were then used in his court during feasts, a shocking display of both triumph and mockery. Imagine being a guest at one of these feasts, watching Timur raise a goblet made from the skull of a once mighty king who had dared oppose him. It was a message that could not be misunderstood. This is what happens when you challenge the power of Timur. The most famous example of this practice comes from his victory over Sultan Bayezid I of the Ottoman Empire. In 1402, Timur faced Bayezid at the Battle of Ankara. The Ottomans were strong, and Bayezid was a formidable leader who had expanded his empire into Europe and threatened Constantinople itself. But Timur's strategies were superior. He used feigned retreats and clever positioning to trap the Ottoman army. Bayezid was captured alive, a humiliation that no emperor of his stature had ever faced. Different sources tell different versions of what happened next, but one of the most chilling stories is that Timur kept Bayezid in a cage, parading him around as a trophy. After Bayezid died in captivity, Timur is said to have had his skull turned into a goblet. Whether every detail is true or exaggerated, the symbolism remains powerful. Even the great Ottoman Sultan could be reduced to nothing more than a vessel for his enemy's wine. Now here is something to think about. Why would a ruler go to such extremes? Why turn a skull into a drinking cup when a simple execution would have been enough? The answer lies partly in culture and partly in psychology. In Central Asian steppe traditions, the skull of an enemy could hold symbolic power. Some nomadic tribes believed that drinking from a rival's skull transferred the strength or spirit of the fallen into the victor. It was both a practical act of intimidation and a ritual of dominance. By adopting and exaggerating this custom, Timur not only terrified his enemies, but also connected himself to an ancient warrior tradition. His court chroniclers, who often glorified his actions, may have spread these stories to enhance his image as a ruthless but legitimate conqueror. Yet there was another reason for Timur's cruelty. He understood that power is not just about soldiers and swords, it is also about stories. When word spread that Timur turned his enemies into goblets, people across Asia and Europe whispered about him with fear. It made him seem almost supernatural, a man who went beyond ordinary human cruelty. His reputation crossed borders faster than his armies could march, and in many cases, the myth of his brutality accomplished more than his weapons ever could. Despite his savagery, Timur was not only a destroyer, he also saw himself as a builder and a patron of culture. In Samarkand, he sponsored the construction of grand mosques, palaces, and gardens. He brought in artisans, scholars, and architects from across his empire to turn his capital into a shining jewel of Islamic civilization. Visitors wrote about the beauty of the city with its glittering blue tiles and vast markets. This contradiction between ruthless conqueror and cultured emperor makes his story even more fascinating. On one hand, he was stacking skulls into towers. On the other hand, he was commissioning art and poetry that still survives today. But his cruelty was never forgotten. When he invaded India in 1398, he faced the forces of the Delhi Sultanate. After winning the battle, he ordered a massacre in Delhi that left perhaps 100,000 people dead. He justified it by claiming that the city had resisted his authority, but in truth, it was another example of his belief that terror was the fastest way to secure obedience. To the people of India, Timur's invasion was remembered as one of the darkest moments in their history. As he grew older, Timur dreamed of surpassing even Genghis Khan. He planned a massive campaign against China, hoping to conquer the Ming dynasty. But in 1405, before he could begin, he died on the march. His empire quickly fractured after his death, torn apart by rival claims and rebellions. Without his terrifying presence, the territories he had conquered began to slip away. But the legend of Timur remained, carried on in stories of skull goblets, pyramids of bones, and cities reduced to ashes. Now here is where it becomes interesting for us today. Why do stories like these still fascinate us centuries later? Partly because they reveal the extremes of human behavior. Timur was not the only conqueror to be cruel, but he perfected the use of fear as a weapon. He showed that sometimes the stories told about a leader can be just as powerful as the armies they command. And his skull goblets are the ultimate symbol of that power, a physical object that turned his enemy into a permanent reminder of defeat. Modern historians debate whether every detail of these stories is true. It is possible that some accounts were exaggerated by his enemies, or even by his own chroniclers, to enhance his reputation. But even if the skull goblets were more legend than fact, the fact that people believed them shows how effectively Timur crafted his image. To his subjects, he was both protector and tyrant. To his enemies, he was a nightmare given flesh. And to us, he is a reminder of how thin the line between civilization and savagery can be. When we look back at Timur's legacy, we see both destruction and creation. His empire did not last long after his death, but his influence shaped the regions he conquered. Later rulers like the Mughals in India claimed descent from him, and they built upon the foundations he laid. His capital, Samarkand, became a symbol of cultural and architectural brilliance. Yet the stories of skull goblets remain a darker shadow over his name, a reminder that even the greatest builder can also be the greatest destroyer. And perhaps that is the lesson we can take from this story. Power built on fear can be immense, but it rarely lasts. Timur's empire collapsed within a generation, while those who built on unity and cooperation created legacies that endured for centuries. The skull goblets may have terrified his enemies, but they could not hold his empire together after he was gone. In the end, all that remains is the story, a tale of an emperor who wanted to be remembered as more than human, and who succeeded, though not in the way he may have intended. So the next time you hear about rulers who go to shocking lengths to display their power, remember Timur. Remember the goblets made from skulls, the pyramids of bones, and the glittering city he left behind. His story is not just about one man's cruelty, but about the strange ways in which fear, tradition, and ambition can shape history. And it is a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying victories are not the ones won on the battlefield, but the ones etched into memory to be told and retold for centuries.